And she just mentioned, oh, by the way, in Denmark, if you study, they actually pay you. And I'm like, interesting. And then I just checked my phone and it's like, oh, congratulations on your admission to the University of Copenhagen. I was like, what? Yes, let's do it. And I was like, I don't need this. I don't need this. This throwing up out stuff, and because I'm like Polish mindset, I'm not paying for empty apartment. It's like that's not gonna happen. I cannot afford it. So
yeah, okay.
I didn't see Copenhagen turning people nuts.
Okay, cool.
So it was late May, very hot, and I had two trenches, 2 winter coats, and I'm like just pretending like it's normal boarding the plane.
Hello, Aleksandra.
Hello, I'm here.
Would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Aleksandra. I am from Poland. I'm 35 and I've been living in Denmark since 2016.
Oh, great. What makes you to come to Denmark?
Studies.
Okay.
I applied for the university just hoping for the best during my gap year in England. And I got in, so in 1 month I just dropped everything and I just moved here.
So
And here I am.
you came here for your master, right?
Yes.
And you had your bachelor back in Poland?
I actually have both. I have what we call back in Poland, it's kind of, if it's very scientific bachelor's, it's called the engineer degree in Poland. So I did this engineer degree in Poland and my first master's as well in Poland. And then I just went soul searching, I guess, since in Poland back then it wasn't so easy to find any well-paid jobs or anything, and my relationship just also fell off, and I was like, I just want some adventure. And my brother lived in London at the time, so I just went to stay with him for a bit, and the plan was to stay for a couple of months, and I stayed almost 2 years.
Okay.
That's a fail. And then I was just trying to figure out how to build a new life.
Mm-hmm.
And after those 2 years of literally just pouring beers in the bars, it's like, what options do I have? And England didn't really seem like an option because education is paid. And I'm sorry, I do not have £50,000 laying around in this pub.
In your pocket.
And I met my friend, which is Danish, that was working with me one summer. And she was just about to go back to Copenhagen to start her master's in law as well. And she just mentioned, oh, by the way, in Denmark, if you study, they actually pay you. And I'm like, interesting. And so I was like, I'm not losing much. The applications were for free. So I applied, got rejected from 2. So then I already was like, this is not going to happen. And then one afternoon, I was just in the pub with friends having some drinks, some cider. And then I just checked my phone and it's like, oh, congratulations on your admission to the University of Copenhagen. I was like, what? Yes, let's do it.
Amazing.
And I had very little time because that was of course, the people that had applied for the abroad, they let them know earlier than in general people here in Denmark, because they should let us know technically around late June. I found out around April, but that also means that I had to actually confirm until May, late May, that I would be doing that. And to do that, I need a place to stay. I need this, I need to actually move out, I need to quit my job, I need to do something with the apartment here, so it was so fast. And I stayed with a friend of the friend in the beginning, and I just, until this day, I remember just moving here. Because in England I didn't have so much stuff, but I did have 2 suitcases. So I was like, I'm not gonna send anything, I'm just gonna take those 2 suitcases. Of course the suitcases were too heavy. So I had to throw out things in front of the, the baggage claim or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't need this. I don't need this. Just throwing out stuff, and getting on the plane, I had 3 coats on me because I couldn't fit them. So it was late May, very hot, and I had like 2 trenches, 2 winter coats, and I'm like just pretending like it's normal boarding the plane. And and then I ended up here. I was in an airport, and I'm like, what is happening? And with those suitcases on the buses, on this, I'm like, it was crazy. It was really crazy. And then of course, first summer was to find some kind of small job on the side, because to get actually SU and be paid, you also need to contribute to the tax. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't so easy to find even a bar job in the beginning. I think that was very challenging. I didn't succeed to do so until really in October.
Okay. Then, so during the time that you were getting your education back in Poland, you didn't have any plan to move out of your country?
No, not really. I think my plan was to actually find a job. As I finished my master's, of course, I worked throughout my studies in some restaurants and so on, to have some money for partying as a student, you know. And then I remember after I graduated, I was still working at this coffee shop. But in my head, it was more like, it's, you know, any day now when I'm gonna get actual job. But then I had a lot of calls and a lot of interest, but you know, the minimum wage of what you think, for example, here in Denmark, or what people get from A-Kasse, it's nothing comparing to the minimum wage in Poland.
Okay.
So you cannot survive on this. So you have to live with your parents, for example, and sure, you have some money, but then, you know, you're working and you cannot afford even to live on your own. So it wasn't
rent an
really,
apartment, for example.
for example, and buy food, that wouldn't suffice, like,
okay.
at all. So it wasn't very tempting, and then I was like, I can just go, and it was February, so I was like, there's not much happening anyway, so I can just go and practice my English, which, you know, back then was definitely more embarrassing than now. So I'm like, I'm not losing much, and I have a brother, it's not like I'm gonna be alone, and I can just try something new. And I did.
Okay. Then you look really happy, I think, about this thing that you tried, right?
I mean,
moving.
You know how it is, like, it's better to try than regret not trying.
Yeah.
You know, and I think everything falls into place. I actually believe in that everything happens for a reason. So I just trust the process of thinking what's the best option at the moment, and just making those decisions and moving forward. To be fair, you know, if I would stay in Poland, I would probably have pretty much the same kind of life that everyone has, which is eventually just get married so you can move out from your parents, you know, and live while, you know, working, and not like, people don't realize what is the difference, like this huge difference between the standard of living between the countries, you know. So I'm not saying it would be a bad life, but it wouldn't be anything exciting. And when I was 24 and I was moving out, this is what I wanted. I wanted excitement. I wanted to see places. But how do you see places if you live in the country and you cannot even earn enough to travel so much, you know? Yeah. So I was really driven by this, not necessarily money, but opportunity, you know? And we live in the world when opportunity comes with money. So it's just connected. Yeah.
Then let's just before we move on about living here in Copenhagen. What about the difference between Copenhagen and, was it in London?
London.
Yeah. What about the difference between the two cities?
Well, obviously London is huge. Like, it's enormous. I think Copenhagen is roughly the size of one of the smallest parts of London, you know, like Brixton or something like that. So it's a lot of commute for sure. Like, you know, London is also divided in zones. But let's say I worked in the zone 1, so in the center just next to the London Bridge, and I lived in the beginning in the zone 3. Doesn't sound so bad, right? To get to work from the zone 3 to zone 1, it took me an hour and a half if there's no traffic, and more than 2 hours when there's traffic. So, you know, you just, like, you really have to plan. I think this is also the reason why I didn't really consider staying in England, because it's like a city that you never slow down, because you at some point realize that on streets everyone's running. Nobody just takes a stroll. Sometimes some fancy people will go to Hyde Park being like, I'm strolling now. I'm like, I'm calm, I'm like a flower of lotus.
Wow.
But like the daily basis and the daily living, it's just constant movement, you know. And this is where this pub culture comes as well in a place, because people are like, I need to travel home for 4 hours, I will stop for a pint, you know. So it's very popular and people are like really chatty, but then those conversations are not really about anything in particular. It's like, you know, weather, like very English, you know, way. And London is full of crazy people, that for sure too. I remember not feeling safe after dark by myself in London ever. It was a few occasions when I was followed by someone, or and just, you know, people trying things, and then I had to ask for help, literally strangers on the bus stop, because I felt threatened, you know. That's a horrible feeling for a woman living alone somewhere in the middle of the city, and I don't have that in Copenhagen. I think this is the biggest difference, that I know I can leave my house at 2 a.m. here and go to the center, and there's a very little chance that someone will try to hurt me or take advantage of me or abuse me in any way. And London was not. In London you need to be in pack. If you were a woman, you need to pack. And you don't know the time and you don't know the place. It happened at 11 in the evening, it happened at 7 in the evening, it happened at 6 in the morning in the daylight, you know. It's just people there, you know.
Totally different.
I think London turned some people nuts, for sure.
I
didn't see Copenhagen turning people nuts that often.
Okay, cool. Okay, we reached at the point that you arrived to Copenhagen and you are looking for an apartment. And you said it was challenging. How so?
No, actually the beginning wasn't so challenging, because I was lucky that the same friend that told me about the studying conditions and everything, she had a friend, and the friend's friend, boyfriend, was having
That's complicated.
He was going for Erasmus. So she actually had a spare room to rent, but only for 5 months. But I'm like, good enough. It's, you know, it's in the pocket. So then later on, it actually gave me some time to just settle initially, and then I moved to a student accommodation. But to be fair, this feeling of stability, like in Copenhagen, didn't really come to me until 2018, because a part of my studies was also taking some internships, which were mandatory. And that way in 2017 I ended up spending some months in Odense, finalizing some additional education on the top of my master's, this candidate kind of like title, when I was learning about processing related to what I was studying, which was dairy science. And then I had to be there for a few months. Then I had to do those internships, so then I ended up in Bornholm in one dairy for a few months in the winter time. Then after this, I literally just had a Christmas break, and then I went to Wales. So I actually didn't have an apartment in the meantime, because I'm like, Polish mindset, you know, I'm not paying for empty apartment. You know, it's like, that's not going to happen, I cannot afford it. So of course, when I was doing those jumps, they provided us with accommodation. In Wales, I did find my own accommodation, but they pay you for those internships, so it's not like, oh, you need to pay from your own pocket. But there were times between, for example, Bornholm and Wales when I slept on the floor at my work, you know, in the bar, because I'm like, I have a flight tomorrow to Poland. I have no place to sleep. All my friends have already left for Christmas. I'm just gonna sleep here. I'm gonna do this shift, and then I'm gonna sleep on this couch. Or then the couch was uncomfortable. Oh, that floor looks nice. You know, so I think my standards back then were pretty low for what I wanted. And then I came back from Wales, and that was over. And I found a place literally online, because I'm in a different country. I do not have opportunity to go and see the place or talk to the landlord. So I ended up not far from here in Valby, living with this absolutely crazy man. And I think, but I don't think he was Danish. He was something else, either Dutch or German. It doesn't matter. Like that actually has no relevance. But he was very crazy. I did not survive more than a month over there, and I already was like, I'm out. But when I was in Bornholm, I met this guy called Peter, and he was very cool, like this, in the 50s, like a hippie,
Okay.
just also traveling, just working in the dairy, but mostly chilling with a cigarette outside, and like, how's it going, All people actually I met in Bornholm, I think they're like the nicest people I met in Denmark. Everyone's nice, but they're like so welcoming and so interested, It's just like, come here, like we're drinking schnapps, you want some? And it's like 4 in the afternoon, like, sure. And he said that, actually my godmother is renting some places, and he did call her, but the place was occupied at the moment. And magically, when everything went so wrong in Valby with this, mentally challenged person, she called me saying like, now I have a free room, are you interested? And I was like, yes, of course. So I think it went really easy.
Yeah.
Like people struggle with looking for apartments and place to stay in Copenhagen. I had my little part of being unlucky living with some weird people, but I think that is a part of life in Copenhagen that for me, it just fell on my lap,
Yeah.
Because then when this lady called me, that was 2018, I still live there, It's she's the nicest person ever, and we get along very well, and it's a house, but one floor is just made in a separate apartment, and then she just lives upstairs, and then she has some extra rooms, even in the attic, and whoever comes to visit me, my friends, my family, they are welcome to sleep there. Like this, never a problem. There's a huge garden, the rent is low, and like people say, where they live, how much they pay, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I think people will think of me differently when I say where I live and how much I pay.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so it wasn't challenging almost at all, right?
Yeah, except this, one incident. Sure. As student accommodations, they were nice, but they were really expensive for students, I think. And because you have student houses offered, and of course they are mostly offered to people that came from abroad or from completely different remote places in Denmark. And I think, I don't even know how much they cost now, but I think they are really expensive. Like they actually cost the same what you get in SU. So then it's up to you to earn for anything else, So that really shocked me. It was nice and it was funny to be there for a few months, but I was shocked by the price. I would assume that for students there's going to be something less,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also heard that the dorms are really, really expensive here in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the things that you left behind back in Poland, your family, friends, and all the connections that you made during the time that you were living there. How many times a year you go back to Poland to visit your family?
It really depends, but I always go back for Christmas, and I always go at least once, like in the summer. But I do those fast weekends here and there,
Okay.
The truth is that the flight is so fast; it's literally 45 minutes. So if I have like a heads up that someone is having a birthday party or something they're planning, I can just get a plane on Friday and then come back Sunday, hangover.
Yeah.
Just sunglasses in the middle of the winter. I just went for a Polish party and just land back, so I can organize a lot. I've been this year so far. I went for Christmas. I went for my birthday last month, and then I'm planning to go again around June, maybe one more time around September, and then for Christmas. So I can actually fit around 4 times.
Okay.
It's, first of all, of course, I want to see my family. Not always I have enough time to see my friends, but at least I get to see my mom and my brothers.
So the family is the most important reason you go back to Poland?
Yeah, for sure. I know my mom really wants me to come as as
Much as
often
possible.
as possible. But now she's also getting a little bit more comfortable with traveling because what's challenging is that in Poland, all older people like our parents or grandparents, they come from a different generation when English wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So for example, my mom speaks Russian.
Yeah.
Not very beneficial in the current political situation either. Like it doesn't help her a lot.
No.
So if she comes here and for some reason I can not pick her up or something, she needs to find a way of actually getting places. And I think obviously that's a very scary, idea.
Yeah.
But now she's getting more comfortable with that because she already came to Denmark twice so far, but she also visited me when I lived in Aarhus for a bit. And now she wants to come in August as well.
Okay.
And for the first time, I didn't have to ask her. She was like, "Oh, I have holiday, and maybe I can come over so we can party." Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. No problem.
Nice.
So yes. Besides, Poland is a nice place to go and refill your stock. Of clothing, cosmetics, whatever you want. It's much cheaper to do it there, and you have definitely better choices. Okay. I mean, better. It's not even better. More choices.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not a question of quality. It's just if you go to the supermarket in Poland and you want to buy something, I'm not joking. The section with chips only is the size of the regular Netto here. It's like a castle, just full of food.
Yeah, I think it's not just Poland. It's some other countries, like even Germany is way better than
for sure.
here.
Even Sweden.
Yeah. Sure.
But I go actually to Sweden quite often to Malmo just to buy stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper but I'm more bored.
Yeah.
I'm like, I like cheese and Danish cheese is very good, but how often can I eat the same type of cheese?
Here, yeah, I get it. Yes. So it's mainly because of the family that you go back to Poland. Is there any other reason, like for example, food or something?
I broke up with Polish food the moment when I stopped eating meat.
Oh, okay.
Because this is what Polish food is about.
Hmm.
So you see something, it's like, oh, can I kill it? I will cook it. Polish cuisine for you, all types of meat. And I don't think there is a lot of dishes in traditional Polish dishes that are vegetarian.
Okay.
And that's why I do not really have a lot of choices, You can have a whole pot full of veggies and stuff, but the Polish twist is bacon. This is what's missing. Let's just put it in. So I don't really miss Polish food. I think it's quite heavy. There are of course some things that I would miss, but not a lot of them. I do like and miss a lot Polish pickles though.
Yeah.
I am very Polish that way. It's like,
but
is it fermented? Is it pickled? I want this. Yes.
So here, I think, it's a pretty cool place for you because I think vegetarian restaurants many are full of vegetarian options here, right?
Yeah, you can. I mean, of course, if I would live in Poland, I would cook for myself, and very often even here in Poland, I will do technically a Polish dish that I like, but I will just make it without meat, or I will make a replacement or something. That the meat part will be replaced by this or this, But if we talk about going out and finding food, traditional Polish food for me, I would be judged harshly in every restaurant, being like, "What are you asking?"
Vegetarian?
So you want this traditional Polish dish that's been in our
meat?
culture for generations without meat, when it's actually meat wrapped in cabbage? It's a bit tricky.
Yeah, right. You're right. So you were saying that everything went well almost when you arrived in Denmark. So what was challenging here for you?
Yeah, finding the job. I would say on both fronts, finding the job in general as a student, even like restaurant, bar, or anything job, so I can get an SU. I think that was the bad time for me when I was really stressed because I come from a family. It's not like I could rely on my parents to support me until I find a job. I came with a certain amount of savings that I had from England, and that's it. I did not have more. So I had very limited amount of time to find a job and get an SU. And I knew all I have to do is actually just get 10-hour per week job, and then they will pay out the SU from the past as well.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
was nice. So
Yeah.
let's say I come here in June, I am enrolled from June.
Okay.
Because I moved for this purpose.
Yeah.
So even when the courses didn't happen, I was already enrolled in the university. And students are paid out also during the summer breaks.
Okay.
And I knew that the moment when I find a job, I will be actually paid with June, July, whatever. Let's say
Yeah.
I find a job in September, I'm being paid out for all months
Okay.
from June. And at some point I did find a job. It was in this Indian restaurant in the Kubian, in the meatpacking district. And I was like, okay, that's perfect. But they were like, I think a lot of people, not everyone, but there will be people in the city that will take advantage of people that are quite desperate, to find certain job. So I was working there. It's not like they didn't pay me, but they were really delayed with getting me any contract. So I was like waiting, and I worked there for like a month or two. And I'm like, I just need this contract like any day now, but I'm not gonna press too much. And then all of a sudden the owner was like, I don't like your face, you're fired.
What?
That was the only time when I got fired in my life, and it's apparently with my face. And I'm like, like that's not very motivating. And I think this is when I really felt like homesick, because I'm lacking feeling of some support. I had a lot of friends, but of course they're not gonna, like, they can support me emotionally. But they cannot support me being like,
financially.
There's money for you or anything. I wouldn't take it anyway, but of course I was invited to some dinners or whatever. Like, it was really challenging. At that point I had no money.
Yeah.
In the end, my mom actually did have to, she didn't have to, but she managed to help me. And she sent me pretty much all her savings. So that pushed me through another month or two, because the problem was that also lined up with me having to pay a deposit for my student apartment.
Okay.
So if I wouldn't pay this deposit, I would have no place to live after this 5 months at this apartment ends. So that was quite a lot of money, and I had no money and I had no job. But then in the end, as anything, you just get things by accident. Because then I had another friend that was working in this bar, and he was like, oh, I actually need this evening off. Can you cover for me for just some extra money? Whatever I would get, you can get. And, just like, not like a job on a full time, but just for one evening, you're going to be paid out this. And I was like, yeah, sure. And, I went to this bar, and everyone was like, yeah, but just prepare yourself, you will be very busy and a lot of people. And at that point, you have to know that the pub where I worked in London was in the very center of London.
Okay.
That was busy for me. We are speaking, a pub that was earning £30,000 per night. And back then, pounds, and 1 pound was 10 krona. So the bar that is earning 300,000 Danish krona per night.
Yeah.
That was busy. We were like standing behind this very small bar, like shaped.
Yeah.
And we were 8 of us.
Okay.
So there was no space.
Wow.
We were like octopus, just passing things, so we don't have to move and push each other.
Yeah,
We were just like listening to this and doing this and this and this. So for me, that was busy. So then I show up at this bar, in the center of Copenhagen, and then you just have a bunch of Danes watching, football, ordering some beers. I was so bored doing this this shift that's supposed to be so busy that I just cleaned the whole bar. I'm like, I cannot. And so it happened that the owner was there, and then he just like looked at me. He was happy because for him that was actually more money than they usually earn, And he's like, oh, do you want a job? I'm like, yeah, tack. And this is how I actually stayed there until the end of my studies.
So everything went well actually at the end.
Yes.
Cool. So you're really pretty happy here in Copenhagen? Are you?
I think it's a very comfortable life. It's sometimes it is challenging, but I'm more questioning if it's challenging because I also changed as a person, or is it challenging because it's a different country? Meaning that obviously I have way less friends here than I had in Poland, for example. But also at that point of my life, I don't think I am even interested in having the same lifestyle with having so many acquaintances and going out and partying all the time, you know. So the circle might get closer, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for me, you know. I know that I have friends, I know who I can rely on. People know that they can rely on me, and I'm happy with it. Like the quality of those friendships is definitely better than those like, oh, let's party and go clubbing, you know, and then you just discover that you don't really know much about each other because all you do is drink vodka.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I can feel the change. But the change might actually come more from within than just a place, you know. But I would say it's better if you are an extrovert in Denmark than an introvert, because it is hard to find people around for sure.
Sure. And the thing that I wanted to ask you is that, have you ever think about moving to another country from Denmark?
Every winter. I look outside, I look myself in the mirror, look outside and maybe like, Spain? But for now, no, but you don't know what life brings. You know, I was supposed to stay in Poland all my life. This is the third country I am living in currently, you know. I would definitely be open. I still have this spirit of adventure in me. So I would be definitely open maybe for if my work would tell me, hey, do you want to travel for a year, this place, and like support the team for this limited amount of time, I would probably do it, you know, no problem, because it sounds just exciting and everyone does it and they combine it with their family life and everything else. Like, but you have an expiry date on that. You know that you will be back and you have here everything provided. You go back to your work, you have your apartment, you have your friends, and in the meantime you have an adventure in Singapore or Argentina or something, you know. Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, sure. So as a last question, what do you suggest to the people who wants to move out of their country, who, for example, wants to live in another country? What type of personality? What the factor they need to have a really good life?
I think they need to be very patient, and I think they need to really believe in themselves. Like mostly. I mentioned that it's beneficial if you are an extrovert. I noticed that how to make a Danish friend is just never leave them alone. Just follow them until they are used to you, and then they just accept you, you know. That's how I made my Danish friends. You know, they were just like, I give up, just stay. You know? And then, but you really need to believe in yourself, because the beginnings, they can be hard. But if you don't have this faith and you know, you meet some obstacles, I think this can be a little bit discouraging. But once you get there, for me it's mind blowing. You know, Denmark is a country of opportunities, and I feel like people that are from here, they don't know it because how they're supposed to know it if this is all they know. But by comparison between the different countries, I've never seen a place when you can have like such a fair conditions of living, being like, oh, okay, I studied this, I put this effort, I know this and this, and they're like, okay, that's fair enough, this is what we offer you, and it's actually a fair deal, you know. And you don't have to worry about paying your bills or going out with your friends if you can afford it. 1 month you feel like you want to, you know, buy some clothing, or the winter comes, you need new shoes, no biggie, because you have it like in your bank account. You don't even have to check this bank account, you know. And this is something that I've never been, you know, used to. I was kind of, you know, having trust issues, and like even when I know that I have money in the bank account, I find myself checking. Do I? You know? But I know I do, because it's been years when I didn't have this fear of like, oh, the end of month is coming and it's like, am I gonna be okay, you know? So I think this is a great part, and I know it sounds a bit maybe materialistic, but the quality of life is also this feeling of safety, you know, that it's surrounded your financial situation. And other countries don't have that. And I don't think people realize here that they really have it, you know, given on the plate here. Because then if they would magically move to Poland for some reason, they would be shocked. They would be calling moms being like, can you buy me a ticket back? Like right now. I survived a week, I proved myself, I want to go back.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. It was a really nice discussion, I think.
That discussion, I was talking, you were like...
No.
The discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.